The strongest there is. With a catch. What's up, guys? That guy with a pencil here. Fun fact, I do want to have it on me and keep it on me at all times. Another fun fact, we have 15 minutes to talk about Lance and the current state of Lance with the narrative Fourknights of the Apocalypse. Whether he's too strong, whether he needs a buff, whether he needs a nerf, somewhere in between. Has he reached his full potential? Does he not have a full potential? Let's talk about it. Let's start it. 15 minutes. Let's go down. First things first, I think the thing I want to be heavy-handed about, and I literally mean my hands getting real heavy, falling down on, is the idea, or realistically, I'm going against the idea that Lance needs a nerf. Because I've seen a lot of people, I'm talking a lot of people say that my glorious, handsome, legendary, juicy son of Bon and Elaine needs to be nerfed. Like, he's too strong, he's breaking the plot open. It doesn't matter how much Nakaba is trying to gaslight us into saying that, oh yeah, you know, the four knights who just got absolutely washed by the four evils will definitely be able to beat them if they just took them a little bit more seriously and knew their match was better. Like, oh, Nakaba, it's too late to inverse glaze, you made Lance too strong again, and then you only went and reinforced that by having him give absolute crazy, legendary, juicy scrum jumps, back shots to literally the main antagonist all over again, having him one-shot him and absolutely different without even his full strength from a range. It's too much. Lance needs a nerf one way or another. He's way too strong, way too beefy, way too bulky. He can't have our quote-unquote main antagonist or major antagonist looking like this. It's horrible, it's crazy, it's bad writing. Hold on! Wait a minute! I see the vision, but it's not 2020. The main reason I don't think Lance needs a nerf is because, well, one, we got recent contextualization in chapter 210, kind of confirming a long-held theory, if not technically openly confirming, basically confirming a long-held theory, that Lance's power, one, already isn't his own. The reason he has an infinite store of magical power that no one can deal with and no weapon can maintain is because he literally absorbed an infinite storehouse of magic power that is the Lady of the Lake or the Princess of the Lake. All that went inside of him, he's currently acting as her vessel. This has been a common theory realistically way back when Lance was like introduced to be this strong. Oh, he probably just absorbed the Lady of the Lake. Especially when it was confirmed he disappeared for 3 years and then came back this strong. Yeah, everyone kind of figured that, and while chapter 210 doesn't explicitly confirm that, what it does do is set up a caveat for Lance's power. And realistically, that's also what the end of chapter 206 was about, setting up a caveat to Lance's power that Arthur himself thinks that he may hypothetically be able to exploit, as the secret behind his strength would obviously be that's not really entirely his own. Does this make Lance absolutely buns booty water fodder? Like, is he going to become weaker than Tristan the second he loses access to all this power? I doubt it. He just has, like, very high base potential. Notably, the Lady of the Lake even notes this herself. Like, you are just strangely built. I have no idea how you retain your wits, like how much of the lake you drank. So, obviously, there is definitely something behind the idea that Lance himself does have his own high innate base potential. We don't know how much of his fairy biology is technically kicking in. He's getting taller and taller and aging relatively quickly, so he's looking a lot like his dad in that sense. But he still could get wings. He still could get a spirit sword or a spirit spear. He could get something else, essentially, that would allow him to compensate for this power that was ever taken away. But, of course, if I'm arguing for him to not get a nerf, wouldn't that mean he's going to get to keep the power? And I do agree he should probably get to keep the power. Mainly because I think it's interesting to write around Lancelot narratively. And that's clearly what the last couple chapters have been about. Before we end up going into the flashback arc of the abduction and explaining how Lance got the power in the first place, we were exploring the problems that Lance has been facing by being so unbelievably powerful. Not only is he seemingly not even the strongest still, implying certain other characters may still be above Lancelot anyway, and Arthur may still be beneath even more people, because Arthur's kind of a bum as an antagonist. We talked about that another time. We do have the idea of Lance still facing problems, right? He has so much magic that he can't even hide, he can't be suppressed, and he can be danced around. He's like a gargantuan bull, but he's not in a China shop. He's in, like, the nation of China, where, like, he could cause a whole lot of damage if he's in the right spot, but a lot of people are going to be able to see him coming and then get out of the way. So Lance does have his own issues with his own power, and notably, writing around Lance is a hard narrative thing to do. And notably, I hate to say this, we kind of need to commit to the bit. I'm sort of tired of authors. Why can I speak? Authors making extremely powerful characters and then writing them out of the plot, or nerfing them to oblivion, or doing this or that or the third. I get it. Very hard to write around. Very annoying to write around. Very difficult to write around. But I do prefer it when these authors place in these caveats, like the power not actually being Lance's own, or it comes with things that he can't be used as tactically because of the raw amount of strength he has, and it's going to cause problems for his friends, stuff like that. I like that. I want to keep up that interesting writing. Would nerfing Lance allow us to like reintegrate him into the narrative more consistently and have it so that Arthur could still technically be a threat? Because, you know, there still could be bad matches and stuff like that. Maybe you could buff the four evils even more. We could introduce to a new group of characters who could possibly rival Lance. Oh no, look at this devious, dark, and diabolical prophecy that the King Bartra came out with. Yes, it's possible. It's fine, but I just once again don't like the idea of nerfing Lance just because he was made too strong. I feel like that's introducing a problem and then solving it by just pretending the problem was never introduced. But unfortunately, it's too late. He already sunned Arthur too much. He's already too powerful. So let's actually just work with that. And with that being the case, if we're going to work with it, how are we going to work within it? Sure, Lance is fine, narratively speaking, if we're going with the idea that this is a problem to work around and with, not necessarily completely avoid or erase. I think the best way to work around Lance is to keep doing what Nakaba's kind of already been doing. In a very similar vein to how Escanor's time limit, aka when or what time of day it was, acted as a limiter for his power, or Meliodas ended up being limited by the nature of his power coming a lot with the dark negative emotions, and by the time he got super powerful, he actually became evil for a bit. While all that was in play, I want something kind of similar for Lance, beyond just the innate caveat that, you know, it's not really his power in the first place. Notably, I think the best way to work around Lance is to have either Arthur get stronger in of himself, just making our main antagonist, or at least our current main antagonist or major antagonist, more powerful one way or another, and or keep Lance in this scenario and have him essentially have to work around the human element. Right? Because the big thing that's noted about Lance is his exceptionality relative to a lot of others and their humanity. Very specifically with the recent chapter explaining the insanity that comes with absorbing the lake and Lance managing to maintain his wits thanks to his special nature. I want that to be the part of him. If we're not going to work around the power by simply deleting it, let the power feed into the definition of the character more. Feed more into Lance's isolation because of his strength. Feed more into the other characters trying to reach Lancelot and what that means and whether or not he even believes that's possible. Essentially, double down on all the character work that's already been done for Lancelot and allow him to interact more and build more. And that's honestly what I think these last couple chapters have been about. It's very interesting that we're getting a Lance solo section. When you think about it, I think the longest Lance style solo section we ever got before this stretch of chapters was like in the midst of his Sin arc at the early series when he was talking with Gother. And that was like barely a chapter. And even then, that didn't really get much revealed. It was very, very short. So ultimately, us extrapolating on Lance's feelings about it, how he feels relative to his father and his mother and his realm, ultimately, all that is good stuff. And I just want more and more and more and more of that. Once again, it's what made Escanor such a fantastic character. What made Meliodas such a fantastic character. Two characters shackled by the burden of their strength and the inconsistency of it. Well, not necessarily inconsistency of it, because like Escanor's strength was relatively consistent. They rarely ever caught him lacking at night. And then Meliodas' strength was consistent. He just didn't have much control over it when he was getting it all back. But for Lancelot, he's in a position of power where he is, and I quote, maintaining his wits, staying sane, being powerful. But now he needs to face the problems that would come with such a level of strength in spite of all the freedom it allows him, right? From the idea that he cannot hide in Camelot because everyone can sense him coming. From the idea that he still has a lot to learn in terms of how to utilize the power. To the idea that he still isn't even able to properly fully wield the power because of the nature of it being so vast and so great that he can't even get a sword that'll work for him. Even if it is made by dubs, it simply will end up cracking in the end. All these different ones, all these different issues, all these different problems, I want them to be built on more and more and more. I honestly wouldn't mind Lance going to dubs. It's very interesting that we skip right over that, and when we go to chapter 207 and we just leave him alone with the broken weapon and they left Camelot. But I honestly want Lance to find out that maybe in Never he'll get a... What's with my phrasing as I'm trying to record right now? But essentially, I want Lance to essentially struggle with the cost of the power and the cost-benefit analysis. I don't mind him working around it in ways, like he's very specifically coming to Bond to learn at least the principles of Zero Sign, if not the technique itself. But with that being the case, I don't want the problem to be perfectly solved. I don't want any of Lance's problem to be perfectly solved. If the biggest problem in a battle manga is your raw stats, I want those raw stats to backfeed into the character to cause other problems. Right? Like, I don't mind you making him super dumb, stupid, cracked, or crazy broken, as long as those come with heavy costs. Now, relative to the other two major main character, titular character powerhouses, aka Meliodas and Escanor, has Lance met those criteria of extremely difficult, crazy, hardline scenarios because of that power? Not yet, not necessarily, even though he does obviously have certain aspects of it. Like, Jericho as a character is a consequence of Lance as a character, realistically. The current state of Jericho being genuinely nutty, and, slurping the water, and, losing her good mind and freaking and geeking over Lance, that technically is Lance's fault. But we need to extrapolate on that more. Let us get more Jericho. Let's see more about how Lance feels, and which we're currently getting right now. So once again, I think Nakaba's already kind of going down the track I want. It's why I have like a more so positive leaning for the current state of Lance. I feel like Nakaba is going into it, but I need more. And I mean more on every single level, right? Obviously, I'm talking about Lance a lot in sort of like his narrative positioning, his raw power, how that correlates to the narrative, and what that means for future antagonists and even his allies. But even then, I just want more of Lance with his allies, right? Chapter 200, and I believe this is 9, right? So this is chapter 208, where he is hanging out with his dad and training and sparring with him and talking with Toyota and just building these connections, making Lance more and more human, I think is necessary. Because I'm not going to lie to you, the one thing I will give everyone who wants a Lance nerf, or ultimately just doesn't like Lance being reintroduced into the narrative, is that so far he kind of has been the perfect man or the perfect plot device to come out and save everybody right at the perfect time. Of course, is it epic? Is it metal? Is it cool? Is it crazy? Is it buku bonkers? Yes. But he's doing a lot without interweaving a lot. I'd say literally every other knight has a better dynamic with the rest of the crew than Lance does, because he just hasn't spent that much time with them as Lance. And naturally, that is a narrative choice because of the raw level of power he has. If we want to have tension for the other knights, Lance can't be there, but make Lance be there. Make it so be that his power isn't enough, or put him in a position where he's forced to not be able to use the power. Once again, keep building the narrative around Lance's strength without sacrificing Lance's strength, if that makes sense. It's definitely hard, and it's going to get more and more difficult depending on what the end point of this little flashback arc is and his training arc with Bond, whether or not he's going to be able to actually travel with the crew extensively. But considering it's, say, the 4 calamities are traveling together, I'm hoping we do just get to see more of Lance in these different character scenarios. I want to see him interact with Ballin. I want to see him interact with Gareth. I want to see him interact with, realistically, Percival, Gawain, and Tristan. I just want more. And not, like the more we got in part 1, where we had a very cool dynamic of Lance and Gawain teaming up, only for the entire battle to be off-screened. And we get, like, 2 panels of interaction with them after the fact. No, I'm talking, give me good, extensive, meaty stuff. Give me more 208s. Essentially, this is me begging for more character interaction and character work from Nakaba Suzuki. Give me more 208s. Give me more of this extremely powerful character struggling with the source of his strength, the guilt he feels for having it, and having the whole world sort of bend around and against him because of that power. A power that he didn't even initially want, even though it plays that he did want it because he wanted to be as strong as his dad. So, like, I like it. And I think that's why, in the end of things, I am very positive towards the current state of Lance. I think he doesn't necessarily need a nerf. I don't think he needs a buff, but I do think it's very possible he could get a buff, whether or not that's wings, whether or not that's actually a valid weapon that can shift to him, whether that's a spirit spear, anything like that. I don't think that could be cool. So, like, don't think Lance needs a buff, but at the same time, I wouldn't mind if Lance got a buff. But overall, I'm in that position where I'm like, throw it up how you feel like it, Nakaba. But very specifically, don't get rid of it. I think that's one second point. Don't get rid of Lance's power. Just make either the enemy stronger, raise up his allies with him, or let the power where it stands at the apex be a problem. And do I want it to be a problem in the same way that, like, Lance becomes evil, though? In the same way that when Meliodas became the peak of power, he became evil? Not really, because the plotline's kind of already been done before with Mel. And obviously it'd be a very strange plotline to implement, but at the same time, we do have the opening of part 2 where it seems like it is Lance himself with his sacred treasure that ultimately goes on to slaughter Bond, or at least that's the loose context we give those couple panels that Guinevere was able to give us. So, like, that could be it. I didn't talk about Lance becoming evil because I kind of want it. It's Lance being evil is in the same pot as Arthur not actually being the main villain for me, where, like, I acknowledge it. I see the vision. There's a good chunk of evidence for it, and that would be a way that Nakaba has worked around narrative problems before. And ultimately, it was pretty good. I did like Meliodas' villain arc, especially considering the context behind it. And I'm assuming that if Nakaba were to write a Lance villain arc, there would be good context behind it that would make me appreciate it. But it's just like, I don't want to say it's like too easy. I just don't want it. But I probably have to make a separate video on that. Just like I need to make a separate video about Arthur just not being the main antagonist, I need to make a separate video on Lance hypothetically going evil, and that's how his powers worked around, because he's literally not allowed to be on the side of the protagonist. It might as well be sealing him away, right? He's not going to catch any major bodies, I don't think. Unless he does catch his Bond's body, but like Bond isn't really a major character. So in Fortnite, I don't know. I have very complicated feelings about Lance as like a main antagonist, and unfortunately, I'm already down to my last 50 seconds, so I can't really fully go into that here. But as you can see, I'm still a Lancelot lover, right? Like, I'm not gonna sit here and say I can't glaze the man. I'm super excited to get more and more of the flashback and context. I'm excited to see the conditions of the deal he made with the Lady of the Lake. Very specifically, I'm recording at the time of 210, and their dynamic seems very, very interesting. I do wonder, is Lance just technically a Jinjuriki now? Like, can the Lady of the Lake still speak to him? Does he hear her voice? We've been inside Lance's head before, and we've never even heard her before. But we know she wants to see the world, and that's kind of her whole motivation here. And obviously, like, there's so much still unknown about Lance, despite how much we do have seemingly quote-unquote hard line confirmed or soft confirmed. I'm still excited for the character. I think Nakaba is more than good enough an author to actually not just work around the problem, but work the problem into the narrative that he has decided to write. And for that, I am very, very excited to see the results of what Nakaba Suzuki is going to cook. But of course, I'm out of time. So if you made it all the way to the end of this video, please leave the sealed fox in the comment section down below. I think thank you so much for watching. Please leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe. Make sure that all the case you'll see not miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also you have a Patreon below. Use for me for as well as one, get a month, anything like exclusive videos, early content, and more. Also now become a member of the channel for as well as 3 days a month to get the same perks and more. Those perks include live reactions to every series I happen to review, including Fourknightsoftheapocalypse, the Apocalypse, ad variations of all my videos, and if you come to $12 Patreon or $12 member, you can order whatever video you want. Now I'd like to thank you so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is Dagger the Pencil, writing off. I'd like to give thank you to our sketch tier members: Eternal Flame, Red Wolf 4765, Astro, Glacier XZ, Zera, Brandon Payne, J2MA, Guillaume, Buddha Ura, Alex Kenny, Enzo, Swift Strike, Super Flame 0, Yuki Ally, Azo2404, Striker Man, Aso8, Plant Crone, Grim, Black Sage, Marco222, Straw, Twisted, Ollie, The Boy, Corey Watson, Damon Brown, Magic, and CCC. Then, I'd like to give a thank you to our line art tier patrons: A+A, Kevin, Encarnacion, Dread Zoan, Sean, and Midnight Lord 21. Then, I'd like to give a thank you to our Ink tier members: Austin Wimberly Aochia, King, RTX, and then Shrimpo the 4th Shrimp 06. Then, I'd like to give a thank you to our digital art tier members: J Warrior and AZ Void. Then, I'd like to give a final thank you to our colored art tier patrons: Walkie Munoz and Walkie Munoz.